Throwaway account because my wife knows my main. I, 34M, have been married to Sophie, 32F, for 8 years. We met in college, built a life together, and honestly, for most of it, I thought we were solid. We didn't fight much, had inside jokes, Sunday routines, and all those little things you think define a happy marriage. But about 6 months ago, something started to shift. It wasn't loud or dramatic, it was subtle, like static building in the background. Sophie started dressing up more for client meetings, even on days she used to work from home. Expensive perfume appeared on her dresser, a scent she never wore before. When I asked about it, she said, "It's just for confidence, babe. You should be happy I'm still trying to look good." That last part stung a little, though she said it with a laugh. Then came the late nights. Supposedly, her company had taken on a huge new account, so she was doing presentations until midnight. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But the way she'd clutch her phone like it was an oxygen tank, locking it even to walk to the bathroom, started eating at me. Still, I told myself not to be paranoid. Everyone says trust is the foundation of marriage, right? But it's hard to trust when the person who used to share everything suddenly acts like a stranger in her own home. I didn't know it yet, but that static I kept ignoring was about to turn into an explosion. It happened on a Tuesday night. Sophie was in the shower, singing to herself, something she hadn't done in months, by the way. Her phone was on the counter, screen lighting up every few seconds. I told myself not to look. I really tried. But then I saw a notification flash, just one line, bold and unmistakable. "Can't wait to see you again. Same hotel." I swear, my stomach dropped like I'd been punched. My hands were shaking, my heart racing. I didn't open the message, didn't need to. The words were enough. Same hotel meant this wasn't new. This was routine. When she came out, towel around her hair, humming like nothing was wrong, I tried to act normal. She smiled, actually smiled, and said, "You're quiet tonight. Everything okay?" I looked at her, really looked, and saw it, that practiced warmth, the rehearsed innocence. I wanted to ask her right there, "Who is he?" But I couldn't. I just nodded and said, "Yeah. Just tired." That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, watching shadows crawl across the room while Sophie slept peacefully beside me. Every text she'd sent, every excuse she'd made, every fake smile she'd given me, they all started connecting like puzzle pieces forming an ugly picture. The next day, she said she had another client dinner. I kissed her cheek before she left and whispered, "Drive safe." But inside, I knew, I was done pretending. That night, I was going to follow her. And whatever I found, I wouldn't look away this time. She left around 7:45 p.m., wearing a black dress I hadn't seen before. When I asked if it was new, she smirked and said, "It's been in my closet forever. You just don't notice things anymore." That little jab stuck, but I bit my tongue. I just smiled and said, "You look nice." As soon as her taillights disappeared down the street, I grabbed my keys and followed. I kept my headlights dimmed, far enough behind that she wouldn't notice. My hands were sweaty on the steering wheel the entire drive. She didn't go downtown like she said she would for her client dinner. Instead, she drove across town to a boutique hotel, one of those expensive, quiet places that charge too much for scented towels. She parked, checked her reflection in the mirror, fixed her lipstick, and stepped out with a nervous excitement that told me everything. 10 minutes later, another car pulled up. A man got out, tall, confident, wearing a tailored suit. He didn't even hesitate. Walked straight to her, hand on her waist, and kissed her like they'd done it 100 times before. That image burned into my brain. Her laugh, soft, nervous, the same laugh she used with me when we first started dating. I felt my chest tighten until I could barely breathe. I didn't storm over. I didn't yell. I just sat there in the dark, gripping the wheel, watching the life I thought I had crumble in front of me. When she disappeared inside with him, I stayed another 15 minutes, just long enough to accept what I'd seen. Then I drove home in silence. She came back past midnight, smelling like his cologne. I pretended to be asleep. But my mind was racing. Tomorrow, I would confront her. And something deep down told me, she'd have plenty of lies ready. The next morning, Sophie acted like nothing happened. She was humming again while making coffee, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have the blood of our marriage on her hands. I sat at the table, watching her, every movement calculated and perfect. Finally, I said, "So, how was the client dinner?" She didn't even look up. "Exhausting," she said. "You wouldn't believe how picky these people are." I leaned back. "What was the client's name?" That made her pause. Just for a second, but I caught it. Then she laughed. "Oh my God, Daniel, why are you interrogating me? You've gotten so paranoid lately." Paranoid. There it was. The classic deflection. I kept my voice calm. "I saw you last night." Her smile froze. "What are you talking about?" "At the hotel. You and that guy." The color drained from her face. For a split second, pure guilt flashed across it, then, like flipping a switch, she changed. Arms crossed, chin up, attitude dripping from every word. "You followed me? Are you serious right now? That's insane, Daniel. Do you even hear yourself? Stop lying, Sophie. I saw him kiss you." She rolled her eyes. "You probably saw someone else. God, you're unbelievable. No wonder I have to work late, I can't even breathe without you turning it into a conspiracy." Her tone was sharp, cruel. Every word meant to flip the guilt back onto me. I stood up, shaking. "So I'm crazy now?" She shrugged, sipping her coffee. "If the shoe fits." And that's when I realized, she wasn't sorry. She wasn't even scared of losing me. She was bored. Like this was just another argument she could win with enough manipulation. That hurt more than the affair itself. I walked out of the kitchen before I said something I'd regret. She didn't follow. Didn't apologize. Didn't even call my name. Just kept scrolling her phone. That day felt endless. I stayed in my car for hours, parked outside a coffee shop, just trying to breathe. Part of me hoped she'd text an apology, some sign of guilt. Instead, around noon, she sent a single message. "We need to talk tonight. Don't make this dramatic." That tone, like I was the problem. When I came home, she was sitting on the couch, legs crossed, wine glass in hand, looking like someone rehearsing for a play. She didn't even let me sit before she started. "Daniel, you've been distant, jealous, and, honestly exhausting lately. Following me? Snooping around? That's not love, that's control." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Control. "Sophie, you're cheating on me." She rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, are we still on that? I told you, it was a work meeting. Do you think every man I speak to wants to sleep with me?" I laughed bitterly. "You kissed him, Sophie. In a hotel parking lot. At night. Tell me what kind of client that is." She set her wine down and stood up, glaring. "You don't trust me because you're insecure. That's on you, not me. Maybe if you paid more attention, I wouldn't have to go out so much." And there it was, the dagger. She said it so casually, like it was my fault she found someone else. I snapped. "Say his name. Who is he?" Her lip curled. "You don't deserve to know." That line hit harder than any confession could have. I realized she wasn't trying to fix things, she was trying to break me. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I just said, "Okay," and walked out. Behind me, she shouted, "Run away like you always do." But I wasn't running. I was done being the fool in her story. For the next few days, we barely spoke. She'd leave early, come home late, and act like nothing happened. The tension in the house was suffocating. I started sleeping in the guest room, pretending I just needed space, but really, I couldn't stand the sight of her anymore. Then one night, her phone buzzed on the counter again. She was in the shower, same as before. And yeah, I looked. I had to. The message read: "You left your earring in my car again, face with tears of joy, can't wait for our weekend." Same room, same view. My blood ran cold. A weekend. Not just a quick affair, this was planned, ongoing, comfortable. I scrolled up. There were months of messages, all under a contact saved as Megan, work. Except, Megan wasn't a woman. His name was Ryan. Their texts were disgusting, not just sexual, but emotional. He called her babe, said he loved her, said she made him feel alive again. She wrote, "He's suspicious, but I'll handle it." That one sentence shattered the last piece of denial I had left. I took screenshots. Every single one. Then I waited until she came out, wrapped in a towel, humming again like some cruel joke. I said, quietly, "How's Ryan doing?" Her smile faltered. "Who? Don't do that. I've seen the messages." She froze. Her eyes darted to the counter, empty. She knew. Her act fell apart instantly. "You went through my phone." "Daniel, that's insane." I held up my phone. "No, this is insane." She tried a dozen excuses in under a minute. "It was just flirting, he's helping me with a project, we only met a few times." Then the tears started, perfectly timed, crocodile smooth. But I didn't buy it. Not anymore. I said, "You said you'd handle it. What did you mean by that?" She went silent. That's when I realized, she didn't even regret it. She just regretted getting caught. And that hurt more than anything. After that night, everything spiraled fast. Sophie moved from fake tears to full-blown rage within minutes, like flicking through emotional channels. One second she was sobbing, "I made a mistake," and the next she was snarling, "You drove me to it." She screamed that our marriage had been dead for years, that I was boring, predictable, obsessed with work. Every insult landed like a punch I didn't try to dodge. I just stood there, staring at the person I used to think I'd grow old with. I asked, quietly, "Did you ever even love me, Sophie?" She paused, too long. Then shrugged. "I did. Once. That broke something inside me." She packed a small bag that night, muttering something about needing space and staying with a friend. But I knew exactly whose bed she'd end up in. She slammed the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. For the first time in years, the house was silent. No humming. No perfume. No lies. Just emptiness. The next morning, I called in sick. I couldn't function. I kept replaying every "I love you" she'd ever said, realizing how rehearsed it all felt in hindsight. I didn't eat. Didn't sleep. I just sat in the kitchen, staring at her untouched mug on the counter, wondering how love could rot this quietly, and how I'd been too blind to smell it. By day 3, I stopped crying. Something inside me hardened. I realized, she'd destroyed everything, yes, but she'd also freed me from the illusion that it was ever real. 3 days after she left, I got a message from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Ryan's wife. We need to talk." I froze. For a second, I thought it was some kind of sick prank. But she sent a photo, Sophie and Ryan together at that same hotel, his arm around her, both smiling like they were on vacation. My stomach turned. We spoke on the phone for almost an hour. Her name was Clara, and she'd suspected for a while too. Turns out, Sophie and Ryan had been seeing each other for nearly a year. They met at a conference, started working together, and things escalated. Classic story. Clara told me Sophie had promised Ryan she'd leave me once she sorted things out financially. Apparently, my wife, my loving, manipulative wife, was waiting for our joint property sale to finalize before walking away with her share. She was literally planning her escape while sleeping next to me. That night, when Sophie texted asking if she could come by to talk, I said sure. But I wasn't the same man she'd left behind. When she walked in, she looked shocked. I was calm, cold, collected. I spoke to Ryan's wife, I said. The color drained from her face. I handed her a folder, printouts of her texts, hotel receipts, screenshots, everything. She didn't even try to deny it this time. Just whispered, "You weren't supposed to know all that." I laughed, a real, bitter laugh. No, Sophie. I wasn't supposed to wake up. She tried crying again, saying, "We can fix this." But this time, I just looked her in the eye and said, "There's nothing left to fix." For once, she was the one speechless. When Sophie realized I wasn't bluffing, the mask slipped completely. No more fake tears, no trembling voice, just cold calculation. "So that's it," she said flatly. "You're just throwing 8 years away." I laughed bitterly. "You threw them away in a hotel room, Sophie." She scoffed. "You think you're perfect? You were never there. You buried yourself in work and expected me to just wait around while you ignored me." There it was, the final play. Turning her betrayal into my fault. But I didn't bite this time. I'd heard enough lies, enough gaslighting to last a lifetime. "I may have been busy," I said quietly, "but I never stopped being faithful." "There's a difference." She rolled her eyes, grabbed her bag, and muttered, "You'll regret this when I'm gone." I didn't answer. I just opened the door. She hesitated, just for a moment, like she wanted me to beg her to stay. But when I didn't, she stepped out, heels clicking against the porch. "Good luck, Daniel," she said over her shoulder, voice dripping with sarcasm. And then she was gone. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty street, waiting for the pain to hit again. But it didn't. Just a strange, hollow calm, the kind that comes after a long storm finally ends. I locked the door, sat on the couch, and exhaled. The silence that once hurt now felt peaceful. That night, I slept in my own bed for the first time in days. Alone, but not broken. The air felt lighter, like the house itself was relieved she was gone. And for the first time in months, I actually dreamed, not of her, not of what I'd lost, but of what I might finally rebuild. It's been 4 months since Sophie left. The divorce papers are signed, the house is in my name, and the only trace of her left is the faint scent of that damn perfume that still clings to the closet. The first few weeks were brutal. I kept checking my phone out of habit, half expecting her to text. When she finally did, it wasn't to apologize, it was to ask if I could cover her half of the mortgage until she gets settled. I didn't even reply. I just blocked her number. There's a strange kind of peace that follows betrayal. You stop expecting closure. You stop waiting for them to feel guilty. You start realizing that the person who hurt you was never the person you thought they were. They were a story you told yourself, one that finally ended. I started therapy. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with because Sophie didn't like them. I even picked up cooking again, the way I used to before life became a checklist of keeping her happy. The more I rebuild, the more I see how small I'd made myself to fit into her version of love. People on Reddit always ask, would you take them back if they begged? No. Not in a million years. Cheating isn't just a mistake, it's a decision. She chose to lie, to humiliate, to destroy trust for a thrill. That's not love. That's selfishness dressed up as passion. If anyone reading this suspects something's off in their relationship, trust your gut. You don't need proof to validate your instincts. You don't need to wait until you're shattered to walk away. Looking back, I don't see myself as the man she betrayed. I see myself as the man who finally stopped begging to be chosen by someone who never deserved him. And that, I think, is what healing really means.